This really is the framework that changed my whole life. Ask yourself the why. Why do you need to go to the gym every single day? Because you don't. Make sure you're not trying to build habits that you don't care about. The value is in understanding how you're wired. You're gonna take that video of that perfect person that you just saw on TikTok. You're gonna scrap that. You're gonna look inward and ask yourself 2 questions, okay?
Hi, welcome to The Habit Experiment. I'm Tiffany. Every week, I test expert advice on building habits and share what actually happens on social media, the wins, the fails, and all the messy in between. If you know what you should be doing, but actually doing it is the hard part, you're in the right place.
Sleep is very important. Lots of water is very important. Exercise is important. Getting good grades is important. Having friends are important. All of these things are important, but you have to divide your time and you have to divide your energy, and you cannot give 100% focus to all areas of your life all the time. What am I doing to take care of myself? Because if I don't do that, this laundry list of perfection I've got on my hand right now, if I don't do all those things, what's going to happen is I'm going to feel like there's something wrong with me. But really, it's just the expectation is a little bit too high. We can turn the habits down. We can turn the dials down temporarily. And then when, you're having a really good, seemingly pretty perfect day, you can crank those babies back up. But they do need to be based on your busiest days, your most realistic days, in order for them to stick around long term.
Can you give us one example of how maybe you do it?
If we're sticking with fitness, for example, I'm just going to go ahead and take myself right off the pedestal of perfection. Okay, so I have done everything from being a fitness competitor to training 7 days a week to taking months off. And now at a point in my life, I do feel like I've got a really good balance. And what that does look like is I do have a minimum plan in my head. I do my best most weeks of the year to follow through with that plan to the best of my ability. But some weeks that just doesn't work out. Now that might be mental energy, that might be physical energy, that might just be a difference in a day, but it really is having a structured routine, because that's what works for my personality blend. Other people need a bit more flexibility in their routine, or they feel too trapped. They don't like that. But for me, these are the days I usually train on. This is how long I usually train for. I have training programs. That takes the decision fatigue away. If it doesn't work out on a certain week, I just went on a great trip, my first trip in 8 years. I went to Arizona. It was fantastic. Climbed up some crazy mountains. And I went to the gym once on vacation. That was it. And, I would encourage my clients to do the same. Go on your trip, find ways to move your body, but it might look different. And that's something that young adults can really take away is consistency cannot look the same as it did when your life wasn't this busy. We have to reframe it to look a little bit different when life ramps up. That's the only way to keep habits going.
To be able to kind of adjust that and not be like, it has to be like that every single day. Prepare for those BC hard days.
Yes. The plan B, the plan C, the plan D, and sometimes the plan just falls apart that day. And that's why building that superpower of what I call, not being dramatic about it. It's just, we don't need to self-judge. We don't need that harsh self-talk. It's just, didn't happen today. Let's take a minute, if we have the mental capacity, to reflect on why, which is always a great idea. Say it out loud, write it in a journal, whatever, call a friend, whatever works for you. And then just get right back to it the next day. And if you've taken some nuggets of wisdom that you can adjust, that's even better. So I tried to go out for a 30-minute walk yesterday, and it was absolutely freezing. So I'm going to go out for another walk today, but I'm going to go for 10 minutes. Honestly, if you go out for 10 minutes, you'll probably go out for 30 because you're already outside.
Yeah, it's like kind of gaslighting yourself a little bit.
It's knowing that putting your shoes on is the hardest part. Honestly, as soon as the shoes are on, you're out the door. So
I feel like I've been running on external motivation for so long that it is hard for me to change that chip and be like, oh no, actually what I tell myself is also important, and my accountability to myself is also important. How do you coach people who have been through what I've been through to stop relying on external motivation as much?
and I do see this all the time, especially I started in the fitness world of the 6-week transformation challenge. So these pop up everywhere all the time, 6 week, 12 weeks, whatever it looks like. You're going to transform your body, your life, your habits, all of that in such a short period of time. So I do want to be really clear that external motivators can work, especially for somebody who's going from zero and they need something that's got a bit of zest. Or, if it's a person that does better in a social setting also, things like, challenges or, having a coach. A lot of my clients love having a coach because they do have difficulty showing up on their own. External motivation can work really well, but people do tend to get stuck when it goes away. So for example, in my job, what I would never want to see is a client of mine has to take a break from training for a little while and they feel that they don't have any trust within themselves that they're going to carry on their own. So what we really want to do is to build internal support. So I think external motivators can be very good training wheels, but they're not the end goal, because if external motivators are the end goal, then really it's I'm seeking approval, especially depending on a person's personality blend. I don't use this in coaching because I feel that it has a negative connotation, but the supportive blend of personality types, which are often coaches, teachers, people in the helping field, we tend to be quite sensitive, and we also really like good feedback from people. So we really like getting that you did a good job. The problem with that is, inevitably you're not going to get that all the time. And I've seen this over and over again with these short-term challenges. Once they're done, there's no support there to help the person get the internal motivation. So they started building the habit of showing up to a class at a particular time with a particular group of people with a like-minded goal, which is a very smart thing to do. It's a very smart thing to join a class or hire a coach. If you either don't have the knowledge to do it, it's your first time, you're returning, whatever reason it is, it's always a great idea to start. But I really feel that along the way, we have to find that balance with internal motivation. The other thing that you just mentioned that is a key nugget is practicing doing small things or small habits without an audience at all. Because sometimes we can feel like if somebody doesn't see it, it doesn't count, right? So I've used an app for my business over the years. So, there's habit tracking, accountability. People can follow their programs on that app. And I hear clients a lot of the time, they'll say, Coach Holly, I went for a walk, but I forgot to put it in the app, but I did it. And it's very important to them that I validate that they went for a walk, right? So, which I'm more than happy to do. But at the end of the day, practicing a habit that no one else sees, that's what really builds that internal accountability to self. And over time, people realize that they don't need that outside pressure to show up. They can trust themselves to do it. And, the reward there is that you now have that trust that you can go on a plane to Arizona and you've got that habit locked down, and maybe it's going to look a little bit different over there, but it's in your values, and you're no longer worried that if you take a break from the habit, it's never going to come back. So it's really trying to balance that external motivation with internal motivation.
We know that it's important to start doing different things, and even if it's a small thing, without needing people to validate us or people to see us, but how can we start implementing it and stick with it? Because I know I could do it for 3 days, but then no one's telling me, oh, good job, Tiffany, you went to the gym today. I'm proud of you. How can I start doing that and stick with it. You know, because like it's easy for some time to be like, oh, you're your own cheerleader.
Yes.
But how can we make that something sustainable along the way and not just something, you know, doing exercise is good for my health, but I'm not seeing, I don't know how to say, the immediate reward. I'm not seeing it right now. How can I still stick with it? Like, should I just like give me a pat on the back, or like how? What do I do so that I kind of want to stay with it?
You know what?
No one will.
Totally. And I actually love what you just did there. And it kind of ties in with the habit experiment we're doing. There is really good research behind giving yourself a big high five, giving yourself a pat on the back and saying good job. Because at the end of the day, who are you doing this for? You're not doing it for me. You're not doing it for your friend. You're not doing it for a coach. And I think the thing is, if you're going to the gym and you don't want to go to the gym, then don't go to the gym. I mean, going to the gym is not the be all and end all of habits. I train women out of their homes. There is no gym. I haven't even been to a gym in years, and fitness is a huge part of my life. So thinking first of all, and we're just of course using this as an example because, you know, I'm in the fitness industry, and it is a really great way, as we said, for young adults to get that accountability to self, because doing a 10-minute walk and following through. Okay, I can do that. What else can I do? But it's very important to ask yourself, maybe this just isn't working because I don't like it. There are a lot of people that force themselves into habits because they feel like they have to, or they want to be the type of person that goes to the gym. So there is a bit of an identity discovery that has to happen there. And I don't think I figured out much to do with my identity or personality until I was in my mid-30s. So for young people, again, a lot of it is just lived experience. So I would definitely ask yourself, first of all, I mean, there have been almost a couple of decades between when I was in school and you were in school. However, I find it very exciting, especially for young women now, because, you know, getting strong and lifting weights is like a really exciting thing to do, whereas when I was in school, it was not so much that way. But there are so many more options for health and wellness than going to the gym and lifting weights. So sometimes a habit doesn't stick because it's not meant to. So that is definitely one thing to ask yourself, and, you know, just see what you come up with. The other thing to practice is patience. And I say that slowly as somebody who has definitely had to learn this as a skill. Expecting immediate results will lead to major disappointment, and it will lead to you not enjoying the experience and making you feel like there's something missing within you. Like we talked about, why can't I just be motivated? I go for 3 days and then for whatever reason I don't go. So 3 days in a row is great, first of all. Going to the gym 3 days is like a win. So that in and of itself, I'm going to go to the gym every day. Well, why? Ask yourself the why. Why do you need to go to the gym every single day? Because you don't, okay? If you like to go to the gym every day, that's great. But this is going to look very, very different from person to person. So make sure you're not trying to build habits that you don't care about, while also understanding that anytime you focus on more than one or two things, you're diluting your attention in a lot of different places, and the follow through is probably going to be a lot lower.
I know you use personality insights for coaching, and I just want you to explain a little bit more about, for people who haven't heard about the DISC, what is it? How can we use that to build habits?
You know, this really is the framework that changed my whole life. It was almost like when I learned my personality blend, and it is a discovery tool. It's not a test. There's no wrong answer. It made me make sense to myself. So I use personality insights in my coaching because habits are definitely not one size fits all, as we were just using in our gym example. So DISC is a framework that asks people two very basic questions. Some people are more outgoing or reserved. So you can ask yourself that, am I more an outgoing person or reserved person? and whether they're more people-oriented or task-oriented. And then from there, there's 4 common styles, D, I, S, and Z. And they all approach structure, energy, and decision-making a little bit differently. And there is no best style. The value is in understanding how you're wired so that you can really stop forcing things that don't fit, if that makes sense. For a lot of people, including myself, that awareness alone is an absolute game changer. So I am a very high CS blend, which I know for listeners won't make any sense. But if we're talking about a scale from 0 to 100, I'm a 93S and a 92C. So that is very high on the scale. So I am a very reserved person. I value structure, consistency, stability, harmony, safety, those types of things. So I am not what they would call a spontaneous adventure-seeking human, which I really tried to be my whole life, but the shoe just didn't fit. I do best with things like clear plans and routines and structure, but another client of mine, and I have had all of my clients take DISC assessments, which is super fun. Another person who is a bit more outgoing might feel very, very claustrophobic with the life that I live because they need more spontaneity. So basically, what I want everyone to take away from this is what doing your personality assessment can help you do is take you from what's wrong with me to figuring out how can I work with how I naturally operate? And that shift alone really does make habit building just feel a whole lot easier.
For someone who is right now at home and they don't have maybe access to a coach, or, like many young adults, we don't have like the resources to be able to, access a coach. So how can they start creating routines that work with their personality rather than trying to fit in a certain routine or a certain type of habit building technique?
Totally. So you're going to take that video of that perfect person that you just saw on TikTok. You're going to scrap that. You're going to look inward and ask yourself 2 questions, okay? So you're going to ask yourself, do I feel more outgoing or reserved? And then you're going to ask yourself, do I feel more task-oriented or people-oriented? So if you're more of a people-oriented person, so you like to go out and socialize, which I did a lot when I was younger as well. So I know that that is a bit more part of the culture. But if being with people charges your batteries instead of drains them, then what I would suggest is just pick a small habit, something you could do on a really low energy day, grab a buddy, check in with them, and see how that helps with your follow through. If you feel like you're more of a reserved, maybe task-oriented person like myself, you can do the habit alone, but you may want to actually structure the habit a little bit. So you might want to write it down, put some clear guidelines around it, just keep it to yourself. And then at the end of the week, just kind of check in, see if it worked, see if it didn't. If it didn't, then you might just need to ask yourself that question again and try it the other way. And that might give you a really good place to start in terms of, are my habits going to follow through better with people, solo? Do I need to be a bit more fluid, or do I need to have a few things written down to be successful?
Is it possible to fall in the in-between of those two?
Totally.
Being a little bit more of like structure, but also being able to change that structure? Like,
Totally.
Is there people who have that?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So if anyone ever ends up doing their personality assessment, there's what we call the midline. So anything above the midline is a higher tendency, and anything below the midline is a lower tendency. For example, my blend is very people-oriented and task-oriented. So I do love being in the company of people, but it doesn't recharge my batteries. I know that from, doing what I've done for as long as I've done it. I love, an hour or two in a social setting. It really does give me that social time that I need, but I do really do best on my own.
You mentioned the disc, right? And you mentioned that it's a resource that it's available. So
Yes.
maybe you can tell us how we can access that.
So I highly recommend, and this is something I really wish I would have done when I was a young adult. You can go to personalityinsights.com. And I recommend taking the general adult concise. It's a 7-page report. It's pretty much all you need to know. And if you go into it, there's no wrong answer. Just have fun with it and be yourself. It's a great resource to get to know where you need to grow yourself a little bit and where you're already excelling.
So for our habit experiment of the week, I want you to explain us what you've prepared for us to try out this week.
Okay, so this week, I'm going to invite the listeners to try something really simple but powerful. So each morning, you're going to say one small promise to yourself out loud in the mirror. Then you're going to give yourself a high five. Okay.
Like the pat in the back.
Like the pat. I told you we were getting there. So the experiment is to notice whether speaking the promise out loud changes your follow through. And then pairing it with a physical cue can make the commitment feel even more real. And there is research showing that intentional self-talk can really improve follow through. Okay, so each morning when the day gets started, we're going to get up. We're going to stand in front of the mirror. We're going to choose one habit that, again, you could follow through on a low energy day. Give yourself a high five. Then at the end of the day, you're going to come back. You're going to reflect either mentally or in a journal. And we're going to ask those very important questions you said at the beginning. Did I keep my promise to myself? What did I notice? That's it. And if you miss a day, there's no guilt. We're going to practice the habit of returning to the habit without drama. And some people might want a bit of an extra support anchor, which is totally fine. So we can pair this with something in the morning like baking your bed, doing a couple of movement exercises, getting a little bit of sun on your skin, whatever you've got time for. So that is an option, but the core experiment is, does saying the intention out loud followed by the physical cue going to improve your follow through? And really the hope there is just to make habit building feel easier and more human, so that we can build those simple pieces just one step at a time.
How small or how big does the habit have to be?
So I would say that the habit needs to be big enough that it's not nothing. It needs to be significant enough to you. So pick something that you're actually trying to work on. This could be something that maybe you haven't moved forward with at all, but you've been thinking about it for a while. Maybe we're going to give the gym a try again, whatever it is. But I definitely recommend that you don't pick something that you really need the day to be perfect. It's something that you can do regardless of what's going to pop off in your day. So something that you would build on one of those low energy days, but it's got to matter. It's got to be important. It's got to have some significance to it. Figure out what the habit is that you want to work on, and then see if there's circumstances around it. We talked about before eliminating that decision fatigue. So if there's any friction that you need to get out of the way, let's say your habit is going to be, I'm going to go to the gym and I'm going to run on the treadmill for 10 minutes before my 9 a.m. class. Then I highly suggest removing the friction, get your clothes out the night before, set your alarm a little bit earlier so you've got some more breathing time. Just make it easy. Try to make it as easy on yourself as possible, but choose a simple habit. Don't make it complicated. Give yourself that high five and then see what you notice when you come home.
So the idea is to give yourself the high five before doing?
Heck yes.
Okay.
All right, you're going to
Cool.
wake up. You're going to look at yourself in the mirror, dead in the eyes, which I do appreciate is hard for a lot of us. But again, the more you do it, the more you get comfortable. You're looking at yourself in the mirror and saying, I trust you to follow through with this promise. I'm going to follow it up with that physical cue. And then just do it. Make it happen. We can really get into our head about all the reasons not to, but the only thing that actually changes is action. So we've got to make sure that that follow through is the end goal, while giving ourselves patience and grace and practicing lots of self-kindness and self-respect.
If listeners want to contact you, where can they find you?
I am on Instagram as @Coach Holly. You can find me on Facebook at Holly McConnell Coaching, and my website is coachholly.ca.
All right, let's put this into action together this week. Follow the Habit Experiment Pod on Instagram to join me in trying this out. I'll be documenting the whole process, plus sharing free resources to help you out. And if you want more of this, make sure to follow the show. See you next week.